Right now, I am so mad I'm shaking. I think if my wife, Sandy, were to walk through the door, I'd put my hands around her throat and choke the life out of her damn body. Thank God I'm in Denver, finishing up a project, or tonight could have gotten pretty ugly because I know she's out there cheating on me again. At least I confirmed my suspicions tonight on who it is, and it really doesn't make any difference how long, because Sandy has killed our marriage like you'd crush a bug beneath your shoe. My first thought was that I should have seen it coming, but after 8 years of marriage, it's not something you look for, because it's something I wouldn't have expected. I thought about getting drunk and confronting them, but why waste my time? My marriage is over. He could probably kick my ass, and with his connections, he could make my life hell, even more than sleeping with my wife. So here I sit. No one can know how I feel unless they've gone through what I have to deal with right now. I don't want to hear all the bullshit that, I'm divorced, I know what you're going through, man, or I'm here for you if you want to talk. I don't want to hear any of their crap, so I'm not telling a soul, not yet anyway. I need a plan, but I've got to get my head straight first, and that's going to take a little time. I don't plan on ever making love with my wife ever again because the thought of her rutting around on the bed with him still makes me sick to my stomach. At least she had the courtesy of doing it in hotels instead of in our fucking bed. So, with a pad of paper in my hand, I am thinking about what I'm going to do next. If Sandy were this hot, sexy woman, I might have seen it coming or at least been looking for signs. She doesn't have a set of 36DD, doesn't have long blonde hair, and isn't a hot-looking, tall Amazon type of woman. Don't get me wrong, Sandy's good-looking, about 5 feet 6 inches, short brown hair with a hard, lean body. You could probably crack a 2x4 across her small ass, but that's about it. Compared to his wife, Sandy would rate about a 5 at best. So why is he screwing around with my wife? Probably because he can. Sandy went to work for Logan Industries about 2 years ago, just after the birth of our son Danny. I made enough money to cover all our expenses, but she wanted all the things our friends had. Steve, with me working, it'll take some of the pressure off you, and you won't have to work so much overtime. It'll be nice to have you home more often, she tried to reason with me. My parents say they would love to watch Danny for us, and that way I could at least work part-time. She was right, but I felt that Danny needed her home at least for another couple of months. I never suspected she'd already been looking. Or should I say we met Richard Logan at a charity auction. My boss gave us his tickets because he said he hated functions like that, and I thought it would be a nice evening out with my bride. When he walked in the room, with his wife on his arm, everyone took notice. He was tall, good-looking, and had money. People like that have almost rock star appeal. He worked the room and had most women swooning over him, even my wife. That's Richard Logan and his wife Connie, my wife told me. He owns 3 companies in town and his wife used to be a runway model. Hell, the dress she's got on tonight probably cost more than all the clothes I've got in my closet, she said in a hushed voice. But they're probably not nearly as happy as we are, I replied, kissing my wife on the cheek. Yeah, right? Wouldn't it would be nice to have that kind of money if just for a little while? She asked me. Sometime during the night we were introduced. How we got on the subject of what we did, or that Sandy wanted to get back into the workforce, I haven't a clue, but I forgot about it until weeks later when Sandy brought it up again. Richard flaunted his money that night by outbidding everyone for the top 5 items. When I called him a show-off, my wife gave me a stern look and said he was doing it for charity. Bullshit, he'd wanted to make sure everyone knew he could do what he wanted. People like that need to be the center of attention. The one thing I did notice was that his wife kept one eye on her husband and the other on every good-looking woman in the place. Looks like she didn't trust hubby completely, or so it seemed. Nonetheless, 3 weeks later I came home to the news that Sandy had gotten a part-time job. And guess where? Logan Industries. They've just opened up a new department, and even though it's only part-time now, it'll probably turn into a full-time position within 6 months, she told me, beaming. Isn't it wonderful? I wanted to say hell no, but I didn't want to rain on her parade, so I sucked it up, smiled, and told her I was proud of her. How did you hear about the position? I asked. My friend Debbie works there, and Richard asked her if she knew of anyone looking for a job. She told him I was looking and I emailed him my resume. I didn't want to say anything to you until after I had the job. Last week I went in for my interview and was offered the job the next day. Isn't it wonderful? She said for the second time tonight. So, you'll be working for Richard? I inquired. He and I will be starting a new department that will handle all the charity work his corporation does. That doesn't sound like much of a job. Well, I'll be responsible for looking at all the charitable requests his companies receive and help in selecting the companies chosen for donations. It'll be a lot of responsibility, she said. Well, I know you'll be able to handle it, babes. Maybe we should be going out to dinner to celebrate. I asked. We don't have the money right now, but soon, very soon we will. So that is how it all started. After that, it was Mr. Logan this or Richard that. And what a good man he was. It about made me ill. Maybe once a month she'd have to travel with him to look at this company or that location, but it was never overnight. After all, we had Danny to think of. Steve, I'm going to have to be gone Tuesday night next week, she said over dinner the following week. Richard is looking at donating a wing to a small hospital in Alabama. We'll view the hospital and then have dinner with their board that night. I'll be home in time Wednesday to pick Danny up from Mom's house, she told me. Why don't you guys just fly back after dinner? I know you'll probably be taking his private plane, I asked. Mr. Logan said he didn't want to rush the trip, and if something else comes up at dinner, we'll need to take care of it the following morning before we leave. It'll only be one night, she said, smiling at me. I didn't like it at all, but I trusted my wife. Richard would have to be a total idiot to hit on Sandy with what he had waiting for him at home. I told her to have a good time, and I'd see her Wednesday night. I'll probably need some extra loving Monday night, so I won't go through withdrawal Tuesday night when you're not here, I told her, and Monday night she gave me about a week's worth. She came back Wednesday night and gave me another dose, and I was dumb and happy. Our sex life was still good, and so was my marriage, or so I thought. Life went on, we had extra money, but Sandy went out of town about every other month and the holidays were creeping up on us. Silly me, I almost forgot to explain what I do for a living, because it is going to have a major impact on what I ended up doing. I work for a company that tests security systems and computer firewalls. We're the go-to company if you want to see if a hacker can get in. I've got an accounting and computer background, so I work in the division that deals primarily with banks. A typical scenario is a member of the board asks us to try to hack into or disrupt a particular division. We try to hack into their computer system, go into particular accounts, and basically create a white-collar crime. About 65% of the time, we are successful and the bank usually hires us to fix their problems. The most fun I ever had was 4 months ago. I was supplied a fake passport from Panama and went to a local Bank of America bank branch office to open up an account. I met with the bank president and he took great care to show me around since I'd be depositing $20 million into his bank. I told him I was concerned with security and he said that I had nothing to worry as he explained, in too much detail, his bank's security system. He finally told me that I had nothing to worry about, that his bank was 100% secure. God, I love a challenge. I took all the bank information for transferring funds and told him the following week it would happen. Between my partner, Kenny, and myself, it didn't take more than 2 days to hack in and disrupt their computer files. I took money from 4 random accounts and put it all into the new account I'd opened under my alias company name. I notified the person who'd hired us and told him in great detail what and how we'd done it. Needless to say, they were impressed and hired us on the spot to correct their problems. The bank president wasn't too happy when it all went down, but at least he still had his job. This is what I do for a living, and like I said, I was very good at it. Over the last 6 years, I'd had about 8 aliases along with all the support documents to go along with them. To the untrained, which was about 95% of the people looking at the documents, you couldn't tell them from the originals. These documents were going to be more than useful coming up. About 3 weeks before Christmas, list in hand, I went shopping for presents. I'd gotten a pretty good bonus and was planning on buying everyone a little extra this year. I got my wife a new iPod and was passing Victoria's Secrets when I decided to get something for her from the store. With help, I picked out 2 tiny outfits, and with my hands full of presents, I headed for home. With Sandy working today, I was able to wrap most of them and find places to hide them. Sandy had come home earlier that morning from an overnight trip with Richard and hadn't even had the time to unpack her suitcase yet. I was all finished, so I figure I'd help her out by putting all her stuff away. I threw it on the bed, opened it up, and started to sort her items. All right, I don't know all my wife's lingerie, but this outfit I would remember, I thought to myself as I held it up. Fire engine red with lace-trimmed crotchless panties. A dead man would remember that outfit. The worst thing about it was that the panties were crusty, and it wasn't just her juice coating the inside. Besides that outfit, there wasn't anything else incriminating in the suitcase, so I put everything back and closed it up. You've heard the term smoking gun. That outfit was mine. I pretty much knew who, it's the why I couldn't understand. It's not like we didn't have a pretty damn good life, but it looks like Sandy wanted it all. That was the start of our downfall. If I hadn't been the nice guy, or if Sandy had put everything away when she got home, she might have gotten away with it, and I still would have been the dumb loving husband. That night after dinner, she wanted to make love, but I put her off. I just couldn't do it. I just said I wasn't in the mood because I had a lot on my mind. I needed more proof than a crusty pair of panties, not for myself, but to burn Mr. fucking Logan. Being in the business, I called a friend of mine who had done work for our company in the past. It was a simple job in that I was going out of town next week to finish up my Denver project, and I wanted him to follow Sandy. "Bob, I just want to know where she goes and with whom," I asked. "I know she's cheating on me, but I need some type of proof." "Damn, Steve, I'm sorry to hear it. Don't worry, if there's anything going on, I'll find out," he told me. With my help, he bugged the house, her car, and even put one in the lining of her purse. "Sandy, I should only be gone 2 nights at the most. I want to finish this job before Christmas so we'll have the whole 2-week holiday period to ourselves," I told her. "Besides, while I'm out of town, you can shop for my Christmas present. It better be something good for all the nights you've been away this year," I said, hoping to get a rise out of her. She just looked at me and said nothing. Wednesday, I boarded my flight for Denver and gave Bob the green light. Kenny was already there, and we'd finished everything by 6:30 that night. "Come on, Steve, let's grab a brew or 2 and have dinner. There is a great seafood restaurant 2 blocks down from the hotel, and the waitresses are more than easy on the eyes," he told me. "Give me 20 minutes and pick me up out front," I told him. I called Sandy's cell and told her I was going to dinner and would probably turn in early, so I wanted to catch her. "What are you planning tonight?" I asked. "All I want to do tonight is take a hot bath after I put Danny to bed, and then I'll probably just read a bit in bed," she told me. "Love you," Sandy said just before hanging up, but I never said it back. She'd killed that. Now all I felt was regret. Dinner was good and Ken was right. They did look hot. We had one last drink in the hotel bar, and I headed back up to my room. The message light was blinking on my phone. "Call me" was all it said. "Steve, you didn't have your cell on," was the first words out of Bob's mouth. "Left it off for a reason. I wanted to have at last one more good meal before you called." "So, what do you got?" I asked. She got a sitter and had dinner with a Richard Logan. After dinner, they went up to room number 312 at the Ramada Inn. I couldn't get any inside pictures, but I've got them going in and we'll take another set of them coming out. I, however, did get a bit of audio, but I don't think you'll want to hear it though. He only rented the room for 1 night, so I'll monitor what goes on from your home tomorrow. "Sorry about this, Steve. There'll be no charge for this," he told me. "Bitch, she's going to wish she'd never met that asshole," I said to myself. So now I sit in my hotel room making plans. I don't plan on divorcing Sandy, that would be way too easy. I need to hit her where she'll feel it the most, and I knew just what to do. This is one Christmas she'll never forget. By Thursday morning, I had my list of things to do. Most of it couldn't take place until the 23rd because the following 2 days, everything would be closed. With one of my fake passports and my son's birth certificate in hand, I made airline reservations under my assumed name. I planned on taking a roundabout way, so it would be difficult to figure out exactly where I ended up. Traveling during the holidays is nuts, and most of the people just wanted to book the flights and go to the next person. I'd gotten a cash advance against my credit card and was now using that money, so there would be no paper trail. I cashed in all 4 of our CDs in our safety deposit box and took all our available cash. I wasn't planning on taking more than an outfit or 2 in a carry-on bag, so I'd need money to purchase clothing when we got there. The final item took me all of 3 days. Logan Industries dealt with 2 local banks, one of which I had an account with. All I needed to do was find a way to hack into the bank's mainframe, then into Logan's account, and finally transfer all those funds to our joint savings account. Simple, right? Wrong, and I needed Kenny's help. I didn't want to get anyone else in trouble, so if I had problems, I needed him on call to answer my questions. I figured my best bet would be to do a trial run before I actually did anything. It wasn't like we'd never done this before, but each bank was different, so there wasn't any set procedures to follow. The first day, I got stopped by the firewall and couldn't get any further. The second day, with suggestions from Kenny, I got in and spent the next 2 hours surfing the accounts until I got all the numbers I needed. My plan was to do the first transfer late in the afternoon of Friday the 24th from Logan's account to mine, and then electronically transfer those funds to the first of 8 overseas accounts right after that. Timing was the key. I kept a low profile that final week. I got all the information from Bob, made copies for Sandy, her parents, my parents, and Richard's wife Connie. I paid extra to have all of them, excluding my parents, delivered Christmas Eve night. Danny and I trimmed the tree and put all the presents under it. I'd been cold as ice to Sandy since I found out she'd made me a cuckold with her dickhead boss. I figured by now she either suspected that I knew about her little affair or at least had a good idea something was going on. I had packed a small bag with clothing, stored it, and a copy of Bob's report in the trunk of my car. I was all ready for the 24th. "Steve, you've been avoiding me all week. Are you okay? Is there something on your mind you want to talk about?" she asked. It was time to set the hook. "Yes, Sandy, there is something I want to discuss with you, but I don't want to ruin Christmas for Danny. Why don't we wait until after the holidays?" I told her. "Well, at least you and I could have a little fun tonight. It's been a long time," she said, unbuttoning her top. That's when I thought screw it and put down the hammer, so to speak. "What's the matter? Richard busy tonight?" I said before turning around and walking upstairs to the spare room. I shut the door, locked it, and waited. I heard the faint knock at the door but ignored it. "Steve, we need to talk. Please open the door, will you?" she pleaded. I'd sooner be gang-banged by a group of Hell's Angels, I thought to myself as I tried to sleep. I guess I finally fell asleep at some point, but found myself wide awake just after 7 o'clock the following morning. I dragged my ass out of bed and took a shower, shaved, and got ready for one hell of a busy day. I needed coffee and lots of it if I was to make it through the next 24 hours. By 9 o'clock, Danny was up watching cartoons and Sandy was making her way towards the kitchen. Her eyes were red, and it looked like she hadn't slept a wink all night. I was done caring and just needed to make it until 2 o'clock in the afternoon before I started it all. "How long have you known?" she finally asked. "Does it really make a difference, Sandy?" "I guess not." "Is there anything I can say?" she asked. "What could you possibly say?" "That it was just sex. You don't love him, only me, and that it was a horrible mistake." "I guess you could say that and more, if it would make a difference to me, but it doesn't anymore. I'm taking Danny over to my parents this afternoon, and I don't want you with us because you are no longer a part of us. I hope he was worth it, Sandy, but from where I stand right now, I don't think he was. So if you'll excuse me, I've got to load up my parents' gifts and get Danny dressed so we can leave," I said in my most cutting tone. With the gifts in the car and Danny dressed, I told him to give his mother a kiss goodbye. She didn't have a clue what was going to happen in the next few hours, and I wasn't about to show my hand either. "When will you be back?" she asked. "When we get back," I replied. "You plan on going somewhere?" "No, I'll be here when you get back," she sobbed out as I shut the door. "Where's Sandy?" my mom asked when we walked in the door. "You want the short or long story?" I said as my dad grabbed Danny and headed over to the tree. "She's at home because she's been cheating on me with her boss for quite a while," I told her. When the shock wore off, I told her that Danny and I were going away and we'd get in contact with her when we finally settled in. "Mom, just don't ask and I won't have to lie to you," I told her. "I'm going to make each one of them pay for what they've done and hit them each where it'll hurt them the most. So Mom, let's have a nice afternoon as a family because I don't know when I'll be seeing you again." At 4 o'clock, I hacked in and started transferring the entire amount of money in Logan's bank account to Sandy's and my joint savings account, at least for the moment. By 6:30, Danny and I were on the first of 3 planes taking us out of the country. I can only guess how many times Sandy called my cell phone before she realized I wasn't going to answer. Of course, it was turned off and buried in a dumpster 2 blocks from my parents' house. Just before we board the next plane, I transferred the money from our savings to the first overseas account. From then, it would automatically be transferred to 8 other accounts by early Christmas morning. I was going to make a lot of children happy this Christmas morning. Looking at my watch, I can only imagine the shocked look on people's faces as my deliveries were made Christmas Eve night. After looking at Bob's evidence, Connie, I understand, kicked her husband so hard that he had to have a doctor pull his nuts back down. Sandy's parents were not happy with their gift either and let Sandy know in no uncertain terms what a stupid ass she was. By the time Sandy realized we weren't coming back, she'd gotten her delivery of the pictures, audio, and a letter from me. I spelled it all out how I'd found out and that I could never forgive her. "You don't deserve mine or Danny's love, so you're not going to have it from this day forth. The house and everything else in it is yours to do with as you wish. Danny and I will be starting a new life without you, and I only hope that one day I'll find it in me to forgive you, but I don't see that day coming for a long time," I told her. "By the way, since the 2 of you started your unholy union under the pretext of donating money to good causes, I've decided to help the 2 of you out. The $1.2 million in their Bank of America account has been donated, in Logan Industries' name, to 8 children's hospitals in developing countries. I've left instructions with them to formally let Logan Industries know how thankful they are 1 year from today. You can tell your buddy Richard that I hope he liked that glory hole of yours, because it's going to be the most expensive piece of ass he'll ever have. So have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I'd love to say that I'll see you around, but that won't be happening anytime soon. I'll send Mom updates, so if you can stay on her good side, maybe she'll pass them on. Finally, if you want to get a divorce, be my guest. I won't fight you on it. We at Panama Christmas morning. I had called ahead and rented a 2-bedroom condo just off the Capitol downtown. I'd saved enough of Logan's Industries money to pay for my expenses, but even though the cost of living down here was cheap, but I'd eventually have to find some kind of job. Danny asked about his mom for the first couple of weeks, but eventually stopped asking. I got a good-looking live-in nanny for next to nothing, and the 3 of us became our own family. On a shoestring budget, I started my own software protection company. I stayed away from the large banks, but after my reputation grew with the small independents, they started searching me out. 5 years after relocating, I had a knock on my condo door. I knew it had to be you when I heard of a new competitor starting up down here, Kenny said, laughing. Aren't you going to ask me in? We shot the shit for better than 2 hours before going out to dinner. It seemed that Logan Industries' board of directors were not too happy about their charitable donations and replaced my buddy Richard as president of the company. He about went broke replacing the $1.2 million along with his divorce from his wife, Connie. Sandy was let go after they found out the monies had been filtered through her savings account. They tried to press charges against her, but she was eventually cleared of all wrongdoings. As soon as I heard what went down, I knew it was you. I figured you'd booked, and when I heard that we'd lost business to a new company down here, I knew right where to look. Believe it or not, I've brought down an offer from the home office to either buy you out or bring you in as the new Southern Division, he explained as I looked at the contract. You'll see the money is based on U.S. wage standards, so you could live like a king down here doing exactly what you've always done, but a lot less responsibility. Think about it. I'm not scheduled back until the end of the week. He stayed with me for 3 days. We ate, drank, and he found more than a little Latin chick to his liking down here. I sent him back to the US of A with a huge smile on his face, a signed contract in his pocket, and a letter for Sandy, including pictures. Dear Sandy, as you can see from the pictures, our son is growing up fast. He attends a small private school here and speaks Spanish now probably better than English. He is in the process of learning Chinese due to the fact that about 25% of the students are of Asian descent. His computer skills are second to none, and by the time I'm ready to retire, he'll be more than ready to take over for me. He knows we split up, but I never told him why. He just accepts the fact that he lives with me and you live there. For oblivious reasons, I couldn't tell anyone where I was going, and I know that your parents were livid with me and mine with you after I left. Mom said she passed on everything I sent to you after she got over being pissed, so you at least know Danny is doing. For what it's worth, I've forgiven you. My new partner said that I was carrying around too much old baggage and it was time to move on. Too bad you did what you did. You really would have loved it down here. I don't plan on ever moving back because Mom and Dad are thinking of getting a place down here, at least for the winters, so I've got nothing left up there for me. So, if you ever want to see Danny, you'll have to come down here, at least for now. Mom never brings you up, and I don't ask, but I do hope you bounced back after losing your job, and it did, however, bring a smile to my face knowing Richard lost it all. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. So that's about all I've got to say. I hope you find someone eventually you can be faithful to and move on with your life. For me, I found someone very special. She treats Danny like her own and makes me smile like you once did. We're not married yet, but very soon. You see, Danny is going to have a new sister in the spring, so it's time I take the plunge again. You can write to Danny if you wish, but this is my final letter to you. Steve. Sandy had a hard time finishing my letter because of the tears in her eyes. After the dust had settled, she never saw Richard again. It took her a while to find another job, and because of all the notoriety and bad publicity, the only guys who wanted to date her were either losers or ones looking for a little action. She is dating an out-of-town salesman, but taking it slow. She could see that Danny looks good and appears happy. She'd love to see him, but money has been a little tight for the last couple of years. She lost the house because she couldn't keep up with the payments after the damn housing market tanked. For the millionth time, she told herself, if only she hadn't fallen under Richard's schoolboy charm, she'd still have it all, but that was now in the past, and could A, and would A, is all she is left. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.